This is the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast, your source for the strategies, systems, and smarts you need to turn possibility into purpose. Every week, we dive into dynamic conversations as our host, Nicole Greer, interviews leadership and business experts. They're here to shed light on practical solutions to the challenges of personal and professional development. Now, here's your host, a professional speaker, coach, and consultant, Nicole Greer.
Welcome, everybody, to the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast. My name is Nicole Greer, and they call me the Vibrant Coach, and I am here with another amazing author. Look what I got in the mail, everybody. Steve sent me a prize in the mail. All right, so let's talk about who Steve is. Steve Cadigan is the California-based future of work strategist and author of the groundbreaking book, Workquake, which I just showed to you. And he is best known as LinkedIn's first chief human resource officer. He helped scale the company from 400 to 4,000 employees while shaping one of Silicon Valley's most admired cultures. Today, he serves on multiple boards and partners with forward-thinking organizations to design adaptive talent strategies that help humans and technology thrive together. He's widely recognized as one of the world's foremost future of work experts, and Steve is the go-to authority on talent management in an evolving world of work. So, Steve, I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me, Nicole. Great to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, good. Well, I got to tell you, we are sister or brother from another mother because, I am all about finding good talent. And isn't it true? So many people have untapped potential if we can just figure a way to get it out of them. That's the whole clue, I think.
And I think that is and should be the ultimate objective of the value we can extract from artificial intelligence. Can you help us see, predict, identify skills, abilities in people that we might not normally have been able to do,
Yeah. We got to use all the tools. That's what I know. Okay. So look what Steve did. He sat down and birthed a baby right here called Workquake. And the tagline is embracing the aftershocks of COVID-19 to create a better model of working. All right. So we're still talking about COVID-19. It's still out there, huh? It's still affecting things.
Yeah, I think the long tail of it is still very much present. That taste of, let's step back for a second. Many biologists will tell you that when you put a biological being in a different environment for an extended period of time, that creature will inevitably perform and behave differently. Okay. And that's where we were as a global community. We're all, some of us in small measure and some of us in very large, lived our lives differently in different ways and communicated and experienced life in different ways. And so to expect everyone to return exactly to the way we were, I think is unreasonable. And so we've got still, this whole work from home pajama revolution still happening.
Oh, yeah. And it's a big kerfuffle out there.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
It is. And it's not easy. Listen, so many leaders, if you take the perspective of, why do people want everyone back in the office? Well, most leaders were not trained on how to lead a highly dispersed organization. Most of us were trained to lead in person. All of our team building is all usually with the expectation that we're all together. This is traditionally. And most of our understandings of how to, communicate and organize and build value was all kind of an in-person reality. And so we haven't really had a long period of time to build good muscle that raises our confidence that we know how to do this really well. And when you think about just culture, what does that mean? What does that look like in a more remote world? We are still making a sausage right now, So meanwhile, we've got a lot of people who were working at home say, man, I'm so much more productive here, not just professionally, but personally. And, I can be more present for my family. I can be more present for my community. I can be more present for my company, but it's just different, right? And as someone who spent most of my working life in an in-person capacity, but also I was in a field role in Asia for 2 years, it's different when you're remote and then when you're in person, just different. And with those informal moments when you bump into someone and Nicole, let's say you and I had a difference of opinion in a meeting that we were both attending, right? If I pass you in the hallway and say, hey, listen, I sense some friction there, can we just air that out right now? Does that happen as easily in a remote world?
No.
Probably not.
No.
But at the same time, one of the beautiful things we learned in Zoomlandia is that that loud dominate the meeting persona gets shut out when you're all online, because everyone talking at the same time just gets drowned out. No one hears anything. So we have to invite more participation. All those people that were on that conference call with 20 people in the room and they're the only person out, we're never feeling involved. And now when everyone is remote, there's definitely more equity in their participation, right? So there's definitely been some upside learnings, but it's still very present, right? And something we're trying to figure out right now. And I don't have a direction that when my clients say, Steve, what should we be, in person, remote, or hybrid? My answer is
It's like,
usually
wait,
yes.
I don't have an answer. I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
We need to
Or
ask some powerful questions to get
yeah,
to the
but my
bottom
answer
of
is
it.
usually when they ask which one of those three, I say yes. And they say, no,
Right.
no, we want to know which one. I said yes. And they go, oh, all of them? I go, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to have
Yep.
to be a blended. The one size fits all is really going to limit your options for hiring great talent or figuring out how you can build value in a different way. So it is really hard. And I was doing a leadership seminar recently, and I know you do a lot of these too. It's really hard being a leader today. Oh my gosh, it's tough. So
Yeah.
many unknowns, so many changes, so many new dynamics, the extreme generational differences. I mean, every generation has difference, but it feels like the range of difference right now is as big as it's ever been.
Yeah. Well, I think it still is out there. I mean, if we're talking about remote or not remote, just this morning I had a conversation. I did training this morning on customer service with the whole team. And the one gal, I've had her in training before, she came up to me. She said, you know, they made us come back to the office 5 days a week. You know that, right? And I was like, yeah, I did know that. I mean, so it's still having its impact. Yeah. Now you talk about in your book in
Mm,
chapter 1, the first whole part of the book is about employees. And what is so cool on here is the title of the chapter is Time to Be More Human, Embracing Ambiguity. But I just want to put a little note in there real quick before you tell me what this is all about. But I do change management all the time. And so I will talk to people about, like, what traits do we need to have to manage change well? And so one of the traits that I have is this thing of, openness, open to what could happen, what might happen, not knowing what might happen, or a tolerance for ambiguity. And when I
mhm.
do my little assessment with people, everybody is terrible on tolerance for ambiguity, but I agree with you. I think it is what is absolutely needed. You need to be okay with what you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about that time to be more human. What do you mean by that?
I mean, and listen, I wrote most of that book before AI was really part of the conversation. One of the things I'm super proud of is that I think my book's even more relevant than when it came out, 21, 22. But what I'm talking about there is, you know, we have the capacity as humans to really understand what AI cannot, which is more context, which is more empathy, trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes, trying to see the world from their perspective. And that's been my whole career in human resources, is really just trying to work through a situation where two people experience the same things, but interpreted those experiences completely differently, right? And so how do we find some common ground, some understanding? And I think that is, when we talk about it, that's a beautiful human reality, that we're different. And it's amazing that we can communicate as effectively as we do when we're all from different homes, different family values, different religions, cultures. We were taught in different schools. Different words mean different things to us. Like the big one in my domain is like, when you say culture, what does that mean? Like, you're going to have so many different definitions. Today is
Yes.
like, define artificial intelligence to me. If you put 50 people in a room, you're going to have 50, maybe 60 different definitions of what that is. And so I think that we have to reconcile the reality that we are no longer in a slow change environment. We're in a accelerated hyper change environment.
Oh yeah.
And that is not something that I think we've got time to sort of fret over. So like, okay, you're either good with this or you're not. And here's the problem. Most of the architecture of work was not built for rapid change. And let's just take one, for example. The amount of turnover in the US workforce today is higher than it's ever been since we've ever been measuring it. More people are leaving companies faster than any time in history. And we've gone in the last 10 years from all the American workforce staying 5 years to 4 years. But the 20 to 35-year-olds are now staying less than 2.5 years.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's the
You can
median,
see it
which
on the
means
resumes that are
half,
coming across
yeah,
the
right.
Indeed.
That's right. And when you look at that number, 2.4 years, that's the median, not the average, the median, which means half of that number is less, right? And so here's where the people who are really frustrated by this is where I try to sort of get them past the what's the problem, what's happening, who's to blame? I want to find someone and blame them. I said, let's just put that question of why this is happening aside. Okay. Forget why it's happening. Answer this question. Do you think that's going to change in the future? Do you think with all you know and see and understand and can predict, do you think people in the future will stay in organizations longer? Okay, that this is just a dip and we're going to revert to that. Do you think that 99% of the people ask the question to say, no, I don't? I said, okay, so if you don't think people are going to stay longer, what have you done to change your culture, environment, org
That's
structure?
exactly right. Because the real question is, how are you going to get people to stay longer?
Right.
Don't worry
Well,
about all these people out here. What are we going to do for our company
right.
to get
Well, that
people to
gets at
stay
another
longer?
one,
Yeah,
Nicole. That
that's
gets
how
at
you build a
that
culture.
question is a really important one. Is it true that the best companies are the ones that keep the people the longest? Is that true? And the
Oh,
answer
it
is not
depends.
today, not today, not any longer. We have, let's just take a look at the most valuable, highest performing, fastest growth organizations in the world in the last 5 years. Okay. Apple, Microsoft, let's go with NVIDIA. Okay. Those companies have a tenure less than 5 years right now. They are exceeding all expectations on revenue and growth and creativity and innovation. And so it makes me ask the question, or makes me wonder, maybe in a world that's changing faster than ever before, having new people with new ideas and new ways of solving problems is way more of an advantage than in a world that wasn't changing this fast, right? Where people staying a long time really mattered because they need to understand how we build value and what our connective tissue is. But if you take a look in the automobile industry and you see that the company that's worth more than the next seven combined, okay, is less than 30 years old, is run by a part-time CEO who's got six other jobs or seven, I don't know, I lost count. And they have more people who've never been in the auto industry than any other of their competitors. So why are they winning? Why are they worth so much more than all the others? Because the market believes they can create and innovate and they're not stuck in 100 years of this is how we solve building cars, right? And that's powerful. And every time I tell this to a leader, well, yeah, but I was taught that I got to keep people because that's how we're going to win. Really? Because some of the greatest companies do not have long tenure right now. In fact, I deal with a lot of companies that are struggling because people are staying too long. And hey, we need some new
Well,
skills.
there
We
are
need
some
some new
people that need to be
ideas.
coached out. That is for sure. Yeah, and I think it's all
Yeah.
all about like not a statistic, but more about the relationships, right? Like leaders need to know who's on my team, who am I responsible for, how do I develop them? Are they the right person? I mean, back to the bus. We talk about the dang bus all the time. But I love what you're saying about time to be more human. That leader needs to know the humans. I mean, there are statistics and everything you're saying, but like
Right.
it's really like, do I think that Steve can do this? Is he the right guy? And can
Yeah.
I develop him if he's not, right? Or help him be amazing? It's that relationship thing, I think.
Yeah. And it's that connection that we all want, especially in a world
Yes.
where we are more technically connected, but we are more disconnected, you know?
Right. And I love what you say on page 33. You say creating value makes you more valuable. I mean, I looked at that. I'm like, I say that all the time.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's really what I think the kids that are hopping around all the different places, they're so smart now. Like when I think about, I don't know how old you are, Steve, but I'm 59 years old. When I
Hmm.
was coming up, I was like in a major bubble. I thought, "Oh, this is how it is at work," because we
Hmm.
didn't really have anything to compare to, and now
Hmm.
everybody can get on some chat or Reddit or whatever. They could talk about culture, and you should come over here, and this is what we're working on, and they develop you, and, like, we didn't have any of that. We were kind of in the dark,
I
or I
know. Think
was.
about it. I found I'm in your neighborhood. Let's just put it that way, but I'm north of you. Okay. I'm north of you.
Okay,
But
well,
here's the thing. I found my first job on a classified ad. My kids don't even
right,
know what a classified
in
ad
a
is.
newspaper.
Right, right, right. And this is the conversation that I think helps some of the leaders get around. And you bring up some really great points, which is listen, if you executive who's been in the same industry for 40 years, if you were starting your career and you could see that you could work in 40 different industries versus one, that you're seeing all these we have more new industries getting born today in the last 10 years than any 10-year
Isn't
period
it
in history.
cool?
Like you can see that, and you can see not only opportunity at a scale you could never see before, but you can see what their culture's like, what their pay style's like, what their comp philosophy's
Oh
like,
yeah, go to
what the turnover
Glassdoor.
is. Right. Yeah, you can see what the people who are working there say, what the people who left say. You can see who they hired. You can see what executives are selling shares in the company, which executives are like. You have more information to confuse you and distract you. And that's why here's a really interesting statistic that crossed my radar a couple of years ago. Since COVID, we have more students changing majors than any time in history, more students double and triple majoring than any time in history. And that just
Wow,
gets
that's
to
great.
what they just can't make a decision. No, that's not the point. I think the point is, oh my gosh, what do I study to prepare me best for a world that's constantly changing, right? And that is tricky, and I'm trying to tell my kids, they don't listen to me, but I say liberal arts, that's the skill you need. Communicate, lead, have empathy, understand, those are
Right.
the power skills that no matter what technical skills, and by the way, those power skills are harder to learn than the technical skills.
Oh,
If you have
100%.
those, everyone's going to want you, you know?
Right.
But it is hard. You can see so much more. And if you ask any salesperson, is it easier to sell someone when they have 3 choices or 500? It's easier to sell when you have 3. So how can you blame someone? Because everyone's has FOMO now. Oh, I'm missing out because that company's got this great benefit, or they're doing these cool like I should go over there. And we didn't
Yeah.
have that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Earlier in
Well,
our career.
another thing I've heard for a while now, I don't know how long, but is like we used to be a world of generalists. It's just like look at HR, what you and I did for forever, right?
Hmm.
Right. So like I was the HR gal. You know what I mean? There was no director, manager, generalist. I was the HR gal, and that's what we were, right? And so now, I mean, you can be such a specialist in the HR world that it is crazy, right? You can get some very finely tuned thing. And you're talking about kids going to school. My son got a business degree, but he has like 3 things after it, with, supply chain, something, something, something. He's got this big long title. But I think it's fantastic that these kids are taking 3 majors and doing these things. And I think our higher education is getting slowly but surely tuned into the fact that these kids do want a varied background, and I do think it benefits them. So
Yeah.
I
And
love
I
what's
think there's a
happening.
lesson there for organizations too. Let me ask you a question, Nicole, and we can debate this.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do
Do you agree that organizations, the world needs more new skills faster than any time in history? Do you agree that
need more new
organizations
skills.
need more new skills, need their people to have more new skills faster than any time in history?
Oh, I totally agree.
Okay. So who's responsible for delivering that?
It's a
The
partnership.
schools, government, right? It is
No,
a partnership.
it's a partnership, yeah. And there's a
Right.
lot of
So let me
partners in the
ask, right.
program.
Okay. So let me ask you another rhetorical question. When
Okay.
most organizations go through a staff reduction, who's the first team that usually gets cut?
Sometimes it's marketing,
Training and
sales.
development. Training
Oh
and
yeah, we
development.
get the boot. Well, we get the boot all the
Yeah.
time. But you know what I hear? I hear that like well, maybe in really big organizations, the ones you were rattling off earlier, they've got big teams. But if you're in a small, medium, quote unquote, large, but not ginormous, like an Apple or something, we're not even really up to speed yet in terms of how many people we really need. To your
Yeah.
first question, how do we get these people
Yeah.
trained?
Yeah.
So my business is good. I got a lot of people who need training, and I'm doing all the
Hmm.
soft stuff that you were talking about,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Much less
Yeah.
the AI. Like that's the thing everybody's screaming for is how do we learn to use this Claude and the
Hmm.
chat and the perplexity and all the things, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's a partnership.
It is a partnership. And someone was asking me recently, so how do you see this playing out? And I said, I think we're going to see more permeable boundaries, which means I feel like organizations and schools, companies and schools are going to start meshing more. And they have to. And that also gets to, I think most organizations are going to experience a shrinking of owning everything and like just focusing on this is what we're really good at. And we'll go there for this and we'll go to these people. We'll have more ecosystems creating value because I can't keep owning every single person that builds my value here. I've got to leverage resources and people and other places, right? But I think we're going to see schools say, hey, Nicole, can you give us some of your leaders to teach some classes to our students and get exposure to our high potentials? And then, we'll be able to send some of our best and brightest into your organization to help you mentor, coach, develop skills, right? And also, I was working at a university in Dublin last summer called TU Dublin, Technological University Dublin. They build their entire curriculum with business leaders. The whole and this is technical business skills. So for their AI certification, they said, we're all about the certification. So we want to make sure if we're going to teach something, all the companies here want it, right? That's the first thing we want, which is just such an obviously brilliant, simply great idea. So they took all the companies hiring people with AI and all the companies with skill deficits of AI and said, what do you want? Okay, let's come together and agree on a curriculum. We'll have it be a year or two, but you got to promise us when we deliver this, you're going to hire these people because we're delivering what you said they should know, right? And so they said all in. That's perfect, right? That's a great model. The problem is if in 2 years what you thought you needed now is different, oops. And that's how fast things are changing right now. And I wrote a whole white paper on this, my experience. So this is the model for the future, I believe,
Yeah. Well, today I was just working with the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and I was teaching over there, and they have certificate programs for days that fill in the gaps with L&D leaders cannot handle. But, a lot of the L&D leaders are in the classroom, which is my experience. Yeah. And so we all have to be a learner. And that's what your chapter 2 is about, right? Toward a learning mindset, right? So don't be a
Yeah.
Homer Simpson, which I think is great. Talk a little bit about a learning mindset. Is this close to what Carol Dweck talks about in terms of have a growth mindset?
100%, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
she is brilliant, and I'm a big fanboy of hers. Yeah,
Yeah. Me
yeah,
too. Fangirl.
yeah. And I think, listen, what I really talk about here, and this is for employees, but it's also for companies too, which is let's not have jobs, force people to just do the same thing. We should have new experiences and new challenges presented to our people. And if you're in a job where they're only asking you to do the same thing, just ad nauseum, you need to go out and seek some new stuff to do, like add on your free time or on your break, or
100%.
ask your boss, hey, can I go help out that team over there? Because you're going to be more valuable to yourself and to the organization the more that you can take on. And that, I'll talk a lot about loyalty today because I hear a lot of executives, I'm so frustrated, these people are just not loyal today. And I say, disagree. I think they're way more loyal than ever, just not to your company. They're loyal to learning. That's what they're loyal to. And if
Right.
you can
And
design,
experience.
correct. And if you can
Yeah.
design work so that there's learning in the job, they're going to be worth more to you, and they're going to probably stick around because that's what they're going to measure. Can I learn more here or over there? And if over there's got more, you're going to have to offset that with, oh, you're paying more, you've got a easier commute for them or something. But that's, what I'm talking about. Like really, when I'm coaching people on, hey, that first job or making moves, are you going to be in an environment where you're going to learn new stuff? That's really, really important, And if you ask
Right. And
any
that's why they're jumping
executive,
ship. Yeah.
correct, correct. I really believe
Yeah.
that. And it's not because you're not a nice place or you're mean or you're underpaying. It's if they believe I can learn more over there, they're going to pursue it. And that, to me, that is greater than job security. That's career security. If you're helping people grow all the time and not promising, oh, we'll never fire you, because no one's going to believe you even if you promise that. But if you do promise, this will be the greatest learning experience of your entire journey. And we hope you're going to stay here a long time. But if you leave, I want you to know that no other place is going to invest in you like we are, coach you, mentor you, give you new experiences. And I think that's what we have to do. And the problem is for many leaders is no. I need you to be fully focused on this. I need you to be 100% dedicated, to just pushing out those widgets. And they haven't thought around, I need to lead with, operational excellence and delivery, but also growth, and that's the trick. That's a tricky balance. And that's what my second book that I'm working on is really trying to help address is how do we get to that real learning environment so that the employees learning enough so they want to stay, but the company's getting value enough so they're earning, income to support themselves and to grow the business, right? Because I can't pay you to just learn all the time and not deliver any value to me. That just doesn't
Not
work.
work. We will go out of business. That's right. That's
Right.
right.
Right. So
Yeah.
there's got to be balance.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And I just want to throw this in here. So, a lot of times it's like, is the company doing enough? And really, right now, you said earlier, it's really tough to be a leader because they're kind of a little bit under attack, right? Employee engagement is low. And are you doing this? And are you doing that? Right. And so there's this long list of things to do to make employees happy. But the employer gives 100% of what they can give, but then the employee has to give 100% too. That's, I think, what our leaders are frustrated with, right? Is this demand for the leaders to do. But I love what you say on page 51. You say capacity to learn trumps where you went to school. That is a great line. And I totally agree because I didn't get my college degree until I was like 42 years old. And then I, kept on going and got the master's and did all the stuff. But I think that that is the kind of loyalty. And it doesn't have to be formal learning either.
Hmm.
Like I'm
Hmm.
willing to learn my job, right? My position, but I'm also willing to go over here and cross train with him and take on this new project and be messy and figure that out. And a lot of times in a leader's mind, that loyalty, sometimes there's an equal sign work ethic.
Right. Right.
Like I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to give a little extra. I'm doing this, plus I'm going to go do this too. That's what I think a lot of times they're looking for as well. But it's 100%, 100%, not 50-50.
Yeah. And that's tough to try to know what that looks like exactly. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, how do I know when I've got that perfect balance, like you say, Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you ready to build your vibrant culture? Bring Nicole Greer to speak to your leadership team, conference, or organization to help them with their strategies, systems, and smarts to increase clarity, accountability, energy, and results. Your organization will get lit from within. Email her at nicole@vibrantculture.com and be sure to check out Nicole's TEDx talk at vibrantculture.com.
Okay, so the next thing that you talk about is managing your career in a dynamic way. And that is such a great title of a chapter because it is what you just said. It's like these kids are not just trying to get a job and do a good job. They are trying to have a career. And that's why they're hopping around. They're building that resume. They're getting the experience because they don't want to go to another interview and they say, oh, you don't have that experience? Well, we're looking for somebody with that experience. They only need that comment one time in an HR interview situation. They're like, I'm going to go find that experience if it kills me. Because I
Hmm.
want more
Hmm.
money, I want to do more things. Yeah.
Right. I become more valuable with more experiences. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to explain this to some of the leaders today is like, listen, you do realize if someone changes jobs, they meet more people, they have more a sense of what it takes to work in different cultures. They see how different companies solve problems differently. They're more valuable and they've got a bigger
Oh,
network,
100%.
so it's not a complete loss. And by the way, your company, whether you want to admit it or not, you're hiring a bunch of those people that you think are job hoppers because you're desperate and someone's got the skills you need. So you're part of the whole problem too, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I think it just depends too what's out there and what kids are doing. But I think that this says looking for a job when you don't have one is too late. Right.
Hmm.
So there's volatility too, right? These companies aren't, like if we go back to the 50s and 60s, I mean, like companies were around for forever.
Hmm.
And like the ones we know, they're gone, like Kodak or something, right? So they do know and they do see that the world is volatile and that they do need to be looking. But you've got that line in there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And this is going to go out to anyone who's listening to this right now, feeling like they're in a vulnerable position, right? And
Right.
unfortunately, that number's probably bigger than we'd all like it to be. And I've got a few family members in that situation. We owe it to ourselves to constantly have our radar up for people we want to work with, organizations we want to join, or teams we want to be a part of. And that's just good professional hygiene. It's not disloyal. It's not, a bad habit. It's really important because companies can get disrupted faster today than any time in history. So even though things look okay, you don't know, it could be bought out. Oh, we're going to go through a big downsize. Oh, yeah, we lost that main customer. Oh, shoot, we're going to have to trim the organization to, survive a longer period of time. And payroll is one of the biggest expenses any company carries. So I think that's really important. And so I'll tell you how I work this into my life. Okay.
Do it.
And it's less possible now because my kids are all college age, but I've raised a bunch of athletes. So when I go to their games, I'm talking to the other parent. What are you doing? What's up? What's happening? What are you working on? How
Like,
do you
where's
like your
your kid
company?
going to
What's
school?
going
Yeah.
on? And there's a whole like I'm not actively looking to network. I'm just generally curious. Like how's it going? What are you thinking about? What's going on? Are you guys hiring? You're not hiring? Like what are you seeing in the market space? Oh, that's interesting. And because most of my professional life was in Silicon Valley, there's always interesting stuff going on all over the place. So that was a great way to do it. Now, as you mentioned in my introduction, the last job I had, a regular job, if you will, before I started my own business, I was the first chief HR officer at LinkedIn. I found that opportunity through a kid's birthday party at a kid's amusement park. Okay. Now it
That's
was a weekend
fantastic.
and my son was going to pre-K, or it was kindergarten. No, it was pre-K. And one of his, friends had a birthday party. So we go to this place called Gilroy Gardens. We show up there and I'm going, oh, great. Another Saturday around kids screaming, having sugar highs and just going bonkers. I can't wait. So I go into this day really reluctant, and like really kind of miserable, honestly. So what am I going to do? So I meet another dad who's feeling the same way I am. Hey, what are you doing? Where do you work? He goes, well, I'm applying for this job at LinkedIn. And I go, oh, really? Well, I'm in HR. Maybe I can help you with your offer. If you get the offer, let me know and I can try to help you negotiate for better circumstances, right? So he calls me back and I try to help him. And then after that, a few weeks later, he calls me and says, hey, by the way, and we'd gone out to dinner a few times, and just to hang out and get to know each other. He says, hey, we're looking for our first head of HR. And I told him you would be awesome. I'm like, what? you know and that came from a kid's birthday party. I
I
wasn't
believe it.
looking for a job. I wasn't looking to meet him to help me. I was just generally interested in another human being. And that's how it works. Like, take advantage of your opportunities. You never know what fly is going to get stuck in your ointment, and it's going to be really beneficial to you. So that's what I'm talking about around, thinking about all the places where you can meet folks. It just raises the opportunities for you so much more.
That's right. And on page 75, you talk about building an indispensable network. So that was kind of like serendipity or something, right? And please
Hmm.
don't miss his message, everybody, where he said, I helped somebody and then they helped me. There's a good career move. Be a helper,
That's right.
help
And
people.
that's how I would like to reframe network. Because when you say networking to a college student, they have this sort of,
Like,
this is so uncomfortable. And you just say, this is networking, helping people and asking people for help. That's networking. It's not meeting a
that's
bunch of strangers. But when you're early in career and you don't have a big network, I mean, it starts with professors, it starts with classmates, it starts with
that's right.
friends of your family, and then it will grow.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And you just told us, Steve, that you were at LinkedIn and you were the
Mhm.
chief HR officer. And so I just got to say, everywhere I go, I have people that are in my classroom and I'm like, are you all on LinkedIn? And they'll be like, oh, I need to update that thing, or I think so. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you all need to get on there and get a strategy and get a book and get going. LinkedIn is the number one way that I earn money.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have so many good HR friends on LinkedIn, and I actually talk to them and network with them and hang out with them. So I just want to put a shout out for the LinkedIn. I think it's
That's
fantastic.
great to hear. That's great
Yeah,
to hear.
it's good stuff. All right. So again, we're talking through Steve's book, Workquake, right? So the first part was about employees. And so it's time to be more human, right? Be vulnerable, be empathetic, listen, pay attention to people, be a learner as an employee, get those certificates, go to school, do all the stuff, and then manage your career in a dynamic way. Don't think that there's a guidance counselor hanging around the hallways of your business. That's back at college. All right. So part 2 is about employers. Okay. The employers have a role after COVID. So you say the case for new talent strategies. So what are some new talent strategies that we can think about putting in our business? So now we're talking to folks who've got some power to get some things done.
Okay. What I would say is, if you follow the conversation that we've been having around higher turnover, and most people have an expectation that it's probably not going to slow down, best case, it just flatlines and stays where it is. How about building an alumni network? How about talking to the people
Love
who left?
that.
How about keeping them active? How about, you know, looking to them for advice? So I worked at 6 major, companies over the course of my career. Only one of them, LinkedIn, regularly reaches out to me and says, hey, we got a new product. Can you give us some feedback on it? Hey, would you mind coming in and talking at our alumni luncheon next week? Hey, would you like to be interviewed for our regular alumni magazine? Hey, would you be willing to promote a new product for us because we're selling it to your peers, HR people? Would you be willing to make a couple of videos for us and put them up on TikTok and Instagram? That makes me feel so valuable, welcome, cared for. And it costs them nothing but a little bit of effort. I'll give you a great example. I've done a ton of work in the healthcare industry over the last few years with almost every state in America's healthcare association inviting me in to help them navigate, which for them is a really difficult landscape of high nurse turnover,
Oh
high
my gosh, you
early
can't find a
retirement for doctors.
radiologist to save your life.
Right. And so they're like, what are we going to do here? And I said, well, tell me more about your nurse turnover.
Yeah,
And
it's
in
a
the
bad
course of the
thing.
conversation, they reveal that, well, if you're a travel nurse and you go 2 towns over, you can double, triple, quadruple your salary.
100%.
And so we're losing people to that. And when we hire travel nurses here, the person who's making a fraction of what the travel nurse is making has to train them. So that's basically blowing up the culture and creating all kinds of resentment. So I
Yes.
asked them, I said, so listen, can I ask you a question? And they said, sure. I said, why don't you get in the travel nurse business? Why don't you loan your nurses out? You're going to pay them more because the hospital that's paying them is paying you. So you become a broker. It's basically running a temp agency, easier than running a hospital. Why do they have to leave you to make more money when you could get in on that business? And they just look at me like, no, we don't do that. I'm like, why not? It seems like an easy solve for me. I'd rather keep my nurses, and they're not going to want to be on the road their whole life, maybe a year or two. But how can I begrudge them from wanting to earn more money? That's a beautiful thing. They want to care for themselves and their family, retire early. Great. So why are you forcing them to leave? And then, oh, by the way, you're paying travel nurses to come to you. So you're part of the whole, like, think of a different way. And
That's
and
right.
maybe get with all the hospitals in your state and say, listen, we've got an issue here. Let's see if we can solve this so that we don't have to pay triple, quadruple, that we've got like a state nurse pool or something like that, right? There's different ways of solving that problem, but that's thinking more actively around a different strategy. And again, alumni, super easy, doesn't cost you anything, a little bit of time. But most people have subscribed to the Tony Soprano school of HR. You quit, you're dead to me. I don't like you. You don't
I
think
was going to
we're
say
nice,
that when you
then you're
got
not
done.
nice.
I was like, that's how, and that is so old school. You're right. Because there was like a lot of hard feelings. And it goes back to this thing where employers think if you move to higher ground, you're not loyal. Right, you're
Right,
dead to me, right? And it's like, no,
right.
I was loyal the whole 7 years I was there, or the whole 2.5 years I was there, but I am going to take more opportunity because, if you think about, like, I know your kids are in college, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Yeah, mine are
yeah.
out of college. I just got the last one out. It's coming. Hold on, Steve,
Congratulations.
hold on. But like when I sit down and talk to them, like they want to buy a house, they want to have a baby, and all of these things, as we know, because we've been there, done that, it all takes money and we have to do that, right? Okay, so you have 7 talent models for today, and one is interesting to me. It says consulting world talent strategy. Join us, then please leave.
Yeah,
Talk about that.
yeah.
That's really
So
good.
this is actually, I'm taking it right out of the playbook that we had in LinkedIn. So imagine you're building a company in the hottest job market on the planet Earth, Silicon Valley. I can walk across the street and double my pay. So we would begin our interviews by saying, okay, so when you leave, what do you want to be doing? And they would say, what? You're doing my exit interview? I haven't even got a job offer yet. I'm like, no, let's be honest. You're going to go because it's Silicon Valley. And that's totally okay. There's infinite opportunity here. We want the best for you. But we want to make sure while you're here that we're grooming you for what's next. And if it's here, great. If it's somewhere else, okay. But we want to be honest that we know you're probably going to go, right? And so I put that in there, please join us because we'll help you leave. I put that in there really as a sort of like clickbait or like to get what, but that's not, explicitly something that I would say, I want you to leave next week or next month,
Of
but I'm
course
going to
not.
make you better. I'm going to make you better, So that's one of the things that I think is really saying we care about your development. And that takes sort of like all the listeners right now. Think about that guardian angel that's still in your life that you worked for 2 or 3 companies ago. Be that person. Be that person for all the people
Absolutely.
working for you, because those are the people that we remember that shape us, the people that have been with us and they didn't hold a grudge when we left. especially if you're leaving for a job that your company doesn't have, right? Like when I left, and this is in my introduction, you remember this, Nicole, when I left Electronic Arts, I got all kinds of grief because I'd only been there for a year and a half. Like, what? You're leaving? I was like, yeah, because I'm going to an opportunity to be the first head of HR for a company that could change the world. I didn't know it at the time that we were going to be as successful as we were. No one did. I said, why are you pissed at me? You helped set me up to get this opportunity. You should be celebrating that. And I'm thankful for that opportunity. But that's, I think, how we really need a big mind shift, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And and here's the thing: I go inside to work with the organizations. I do leadership training. We put in operating systems. We do the whole thing, right? And Steve, I'll have a group of leaders in the room, and they're saying, "But people don't leave." So the opposite of what we're talking about. Like they're like, "Well, no, people love working here. They don't leave. Like there aren't really that many opportunities." And like I will go back a month later, work with that same leadership team, and they're like, "Oh, so and so just got promoted." I'm like, "I didn't think there were any opportunities here." Oh, well, we
Yeah.
decided to start this, to your point about starting the travel nurses or whatever. I mean, like,
Yeah.
people have a hard time connecting the innovation that we're going to do with the opportunities that come
Yeah.
ahead. I did a big change management thing with Duke
That's awesome.
Energy. We went
Good to hear.
in, we put SAP in there, and as a result of SAP, they put a whole change management department in Duke Energy.
Wow.
And all
Wow.
these people got jobs. But see, that's how business works. So I think people have to get educated on that. That's so important. All right. So the other thing you say in here, which I highlighted, was we as employers need to build entrepreneurs. And I mean, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. Like people who are like, you know what we could
Yeah.
start? So talk about building entrepreneurs. Your example is Adobe.
Yeah. Listen, I think we all are entrepreneurs, maybe not in the Silicon Valley, perceived definition of that. But entrepreneurs are like solving problems on your own, being creative, being independent. And I feel like some of us have trained, to sort of keep people in the same role because it's lowering risk and it's building confidence. And that's a failed strategy. What we're trying to do is really think about how can I model this in a way that's going to deliver newness, like we talked about earlier, right? And I think that's super, super important. That's when you get something new on your plate, energy is unlocked. Think about all listeners, think about, and Nicole, you can answer this. When have you had the greatest energy in your career? When you've been doing the same thing for 3, 4, 5 years, or when someone gave you something new, a little bit scary, you didn't really know about it, you weren't sure you could do it right, and then you did it, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I'm capable of doing so many more things that I wasn't aware of, right? And that's why, how can we talk about leading differently? Is like, you need to study, do I have people who can learn quickly, that I can move in different places and see where they create magic, right? And learn about themselves and become more self-aware. And some of it's hard, like I've been put in roles where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, but if I had the confidence from the manager, like, hey, it's okay. You're going to figure this out. I know you can. You figured that out. You can figure this out. Then that just builds on it, right? And that's the gift that I hope we all do as parents is help your kids build the joy for learning, because then
That's
no matter
exactly
what they
right.
face is going to be, something they feel they can tackle.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I love that. Well, we have almost gotten through this whole book, not thoroughly. You got to go get the book, everybody. So here it
Good
is,
team.
Workquake by Steve. All right. So last thing I want to talk about is learning velocity. Talk about how a company can move people through. I teach this thing called the learning curve every time I teach. I'm like, we're going through a learning curve right now. Things are going to be messy. You're going to gag, but you're going to pop out here and you're going to be working at
Yeah.
a whole nother level. So talk about learning velocity, going through those curves.
The reason why I believe learning velocity is so important goes back to what we already
Yeah,
talked about, which is if you believe jobs are changing faster and the need for new skills is faster than it's ever been, then you need as a leader to discover the learning velocity of any candidate you're looking at. And that's not something we've really thoughtfully gone after in an interview. We've gone through mastery and expertise. I want to know you can do this. But if we know the job's going to change, we know our industry is going to change, we know we're going to need new skills, just like AI wasn't even on the radar 5, 10 years ago. Now it's like everyone needs AI skills. So how can we gain confidence that you have the capacity to learn new things quickly? Well, I'm looking for clues in your resume. When new technologies come out or new products have come out, do I see you're an early adopter? Do I see that you've been given all the new projects at your company? right? You're not staying on yesterday's projects, you're on the new project, okay? That's a good sign. Another thing I look for on the personal side, and again, we're on the border of ethical, unethical in terms of understanding this, but sometimes you can it comes out in an interview. Did you live in different countries as a child? Because if you did, I knew you had to adapt, right? You had to learn a new language. Like, are you from another country? How many languages do you know? Like that capacity and awareness of adapting in different cultures is, I find, a good indicator of confidence, as someone probably can adapt and learn new things reasonably well, right? Those kinds of life experiences. And sometimes I'll ask things like, hey, what has shaped your capacity to adapt the most in your professional life? And if I were to, try to understand how fast you learn stuff or how you're an early adopter, what can you do to raise my confidence that you are that? Like, put it on the, like, you could even be as explicit as that. But let me give you an example of something that we did at LinkedIn, which I think was a really great learning for us. And we sort of stumbled onto it. So we needed to hire a whole bunch of Python engineers at some point. Okay. Do we have time? Are we good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we need to hire a bunch of Python engineers when it became clear that cloud computing was the future at LinkedIn. Okay. At the time, there were very few Python engineers. How do we know that? Because we're LinkedIn and we could see there's hardly any Python engineers. So we said, we're going to have to go
Just a
make
little
some
bit of
Python
an
engineers.
advantage.
A little bit. Oopsie. So we looked in the cupboard and we go, oh my gosh, there's like no one with Python experience here. So then we said, we're going to have to make some Python engineers. So instead of going to, hey, what university's got Python professors? We said, before we do that, what can we learn about everyone who's using Python today that can give us a clue of who could learn this fast, who would like it, and who would be good at it, right? So we came up with about a dozen attributes of all the people that were programming on Python. What languages did they know before? What kind of projects were they working on? What kind of experiences? What kind of universities they went to? And we found 15 people in the company that
Nice.
fit this, that raised our confidence. Hey, they're going to be good at it and they're going to like it. So we tapped her on the shoulder and said, hey, we've got a 3-month boot camp for you to learn Python, this new language, and it would lead to new projects in this new area. Would you be willing to stop what you're doing? We would backfill you with someone else and you wouldn't have to go in there, and you're going to go in this new direction. And they were like, what?
Hot
Yes,
dang, I'm in.
thank you. And also they were like, you looked at my profile and you tried to see if I had clues that I would get it quickly. Like, we're like,
Gotta
yeah,
get your LinkedIn profile updated, people.
100%. 100%. You can't get discovered if there's nothing about you to be discovered, right? You will not be discovered.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I'll
Yeah,
just tell you, HR Insider, somebody applies, first thing I do is I go check them out on LinkedIn. Like, how
right.
dedicated to this job hunt are they? Are they really looking? Are they trying to show their best selves? And an
Right.
eagle from a non-eagle, somebody who's vibrant and somebody who's a little dull, just by looking
Yeah,
at how they're keeping things up. How did you say in the book? You said about taking care of your career, right? That
that's right.
that that is job number one in this life, right?
That's right. And expect the unexpected, just play the long game, like be more valuable and create value and build people that are going to advocate for you too. 100%.
That's right. That's right. Well, we didn't cover all the nuggets that are in this book, everybody, but you can go out to the Amazon and get it in your inbox, your mailbox tomorrow. So, Steve, if people wanted to get a hold of you, what do they do?
You could find me on LinkedIn. I hear it's a pretty good website. You can also find me on my website, stevecadigan.com. You
Okay.
can find Workquake on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. And I also have a TikTok channel in my name, Steve Cadigan. If you're interested in some humorous stories, I have a series there called True Stories from Corporate America. And Nicole, I
Oh,
want you to check it out because there are, I'm sure, many of these stories you're going to remember and get a good chuckle out of. And you can find me on, if you want to email me, steve@cadiganventures.com. Please do. If there's something that struck you or if you got a really interesting story that you'd like to share, I'm always interested in people and organizations doing interesting things around the future of work. So yeah, please reach out.
okay. Fantastic. All right, everybody. It's been another episode of the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast, and I'm here with another genius. So look him up, get connected, go to the LinkedIn. He'll accept your connection. It's been so great to be with you, Steve. I'm grateful for your time, your energy, and your wisdom. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. It's been a blast.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more like-minded listeners. Remember, the journey to building a vibrant culture never stops. Stay inspired, keep nurturing your vibrant culture, and we can't wait to reconnect with you on the next exciting episode of the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast.